Hi, I'm Andrew Torget with Texas History for Teachers. Most Texans don't know his name today, but Juan Seguin was a Tejano, a Mexican native to Texas, who fought for Texas during the Revolution. And his story is important because it gives us a powerful window into Tejano perspectives during the Revolution. Juan grew up in San Antonio, which is where the vast majority of Tejanos lived during the 1820s and the 1830s. And he was just a teenager when Stephen F. Austin came in 1821 and began his colonization experiment. Juan was actually 16 years old when all of that began. And Juan's family, like most of the Tejanos in San Antonio, were big supporters of Stephen F. Austin and the colonization that he was doing in East Texas. And the reason they were is that it was going to be a development that would help them economically, it would bring all kinds of new commerce into the region, and it would help them secure the territory from groups like the Comanches and Apaches, who had been really in charge of most of Texas throughout the Spanish period. Juan Seguin also became a political leader amongst the Tejanos in San Antonio. He was elected the alcalde, which means mayor, of San Antonio in 1834. The next year, in 1835, when Santa Anna overthrew the Mexican Constitution, it began a civil war across all of Mexico, pitting those who agreed with Santa Anna that we shouldn't have that constitution anymore and we should centralize authority in Mexico City, those are called the Centralists, versus those who thought it was wrong to overthrow the Constitution and wanted states like Texas to have a lot of authority over themselves, those are called Federalists. And most of the Texans, the Anglo-Americans and the Tejanos, are Federalists and very strongly feel that Santa Anna had overthrown the Constitution and that was wrong, that they should fight against that in the civil war that's breaking out within Mexico. Juan Seguin is involved in the very first big battle of the Texas Revolution, which happens in San Antonio in early December 1835, when Anglo-Americans and Tejanos, like Juan Seguin, are pushing their way through the streets of San Antonio to push out the Mexican troops who were allied to Santa Anna. And they end up defeating them in early December of 1835 and pushing them out. And that's what makes Santa Anna so angry that he brings an army into Texas in early 1836. So Juan, he's from San Antonio, and so he stays in San Antonio in January and February of 1836. And so he's there when Santa Anna marches his army into San Antonio on March 23rd, 1836, and besieges the Alamo. Juan Seguin is one of several Tejanos who are in the Alamo complex fighting against Santa Anna. And that's a really important point for us to understand, is that the Texas Revolution was not just Anglo-Americans versus Mexicans. It was Anglo-American settlers and Tejanos against Santa Anna specifically. And that's a really important point to understand because Juan Seguin was as opposed to Santa Anna as any of the Anglos inside the Alamo complex. Juan Seguin himself will survive all of this only because he becomes a courier who leaves the Alamo and takes word to the rest of Texas asking for reinforcement. None of the defenders of the Alamo wanted to die in the Alamo, so the commander of the Alamo garrison, William Barrett Travis, he starts writing letters that he sends to the rest of Texas asking for reinforcements. And on February 28th, he hands one of those letters to Juan Seguin and asks him to ride down to Goliad, where there are 400 Texas soldiers under the command of James Fannin, asking them to reinforce the Alamo garrison. And so Juan Seguin, under the cover of darkness, takes that letter, takes his horse, goes out through the Alamo entrance, gets on his horse, and then just rides as hard as he possibly can through Santa Anna's lines, hoping he's going to survive. As it turns out, he runs into one of Fannin's officers on the way down there, so he hands the letter to the officer, and then Seguin heads back up and he goes to Gonzales, which is just to the east of San Antonio. So once Seguin gets to Gonzales, he starts organizing another Tejano infantry regiment. This one made up of Tejanos who escaped from San Antonio in the aftermath of Santa Anna's invasion, men like Antonio Menchaca. And so he puts this group together, and these Tejanos are in Gonzales at the same moment that Sam Houston comes marching in as head of the Texas Army. Now, Houston had been riding to relieve the Alamo, but he found out that the Alamo had fallen, and so he decides that the only thing he can possibly do is retreat east so he'll have time to build up his army. The Tejanos are going to play a really important role in what happens next, because Sam Houston is retreating as fast as he can, Santa Anna is chasing him as fast as he can, and so the Tejanos, Juan Seguin and Antonio Menchaca, they're assigned to guard the rear of the Texas Army as it's retreating, to make sure they don't get surprised and attacked by Santa Anna's troops. They also help all the refugees who are trying to get away from Santa Anna's army, all the Texas civilians who are scared of Santa Anna's army and are trying to escape. The Tejanos help them get across rivers and help them try to get away to safety. And so they retreat with the Texas Army, and when Sam Houston gets near what will be the Battle of San Jacinto, he decides that he's not going to let the Tejanos fight in the final cumulative battle. Houston was worried that the Tejanos might get shot by the Texans, who might not be able to tell the difference between Mexicans native to Texas and Santa Anna's troops. So he told them he was going to assign them to guard the camp and the horses while the battle went on. And Juan Seguin was going to have none of this. Antonio Menchaca was going to have none of this. They wanted to be in the fight because it was just as much their war as it was Sam Houston's. So Menchaca and Seguin, they go up to Sam Houston and tell him point blank that they want to be in the fight. And we know this because Antonio Menchaca kept memoirs of this, and he wrote later that he told Sam Houston, quote, "When I joined the Americans, I had done so with a view of aiding them in their fight, and that I wanted to do so even if I died facing the enemy. That I did not enlist to guard horses and would do no such duty." The important thing to know about that is that the Tejanos demanded to be a part of the Battle of San Jacinto. This is their fight too. So on April 21st, 1836, we have the Battle of San Jacinto. And at that battle, there are 19 Tejanos under the command of Juan Seguin who are involved in the fighting from the very beginning to the very bloody end of it all. And so Juan Seguin's not just a hero of the Alamo, he's a hero also of San Jacinto and really of the full Texas Revolution. But his story doesn't end there. Because after the Battle of San Jacinto, there's still a Mexican army loyal to Santa Anna in Texas. It's based back in San Antonio. And so Juan Seguin is sent back to San Antonio to accept the surrender of that army, which he does on June 4th, 1836. And that's really what ends the Texas Revolution and sends the last of Santa Anna's army out of Texas. And when Juan Seguin got back to San Antonio, what he realized is that there had been an enormous amount of devastation to the homes of Tejanos like him. He said when he got back there, quote, "There was not one of them being Tejanos, who did not lament the loss of a relative, and to crown their misfortunes, they found their houses in ruins, their fields laid waste, and their cattle destroyed or dispersed." Basically what he's saying is that Santa Anna's army had basically ruined everything around San Antonio, and they'd really destroyed the homes and the property of all the Tejanos who lived in that territory. I myself found my ranch despoiled, just to say ruined. Ruin and misery met me on my return to my unpretentious home. And so Juan Seguin's story is important because it reminds us that Tejanos, again, the Mexicans native to Texas, were really at the center of the Texas Revolution story, and they played crucial leading roles throughout. And they also made tremendous sacrifices for Texas throughout the war.